Christianity is the prominent religion in the US, in Latin America, in Canada, and in half of Europe. But at the same time, it's declining very steadily in all these countries. So today, on the This Is Better podcast, we want to talk about why this is happening. Could this have something to do with cultural influence? That's what me and Stephanie will be talking about today.
Mm-hmm. And when you mention about the decline, something that I was reading actually mentioned Christians believe it's because of the decline of family. There's less people getting married, more people that are not staying married. Because when people are married and begin to go to church and are raising their families in church, usually, you're taking your children to church at least until they're into their teens. And that stays with them. Even if they fall away, they come back. But because the family unit, because, Satan is after the family unit, trying to break down the family unit, that could be one of the reasons. Yeah, we spend a lot of money and effort, rightly so, on our youth and our youth ministries, but not so much on the family unit. They suggest more classes and things that are going on to talk about the families and keeping them together, marriages for just the couples, and on single people. Break it down to each of those, and hopefully that will help the family unit stay together.
And we also put, it's interesting, we were talking about this before we started, but we put so much money into sending missionaries out to other countries, and that's such an important ministry. But in the missions classes that I take in school, they keep saying that, these exact countries that we're sending missionaries to, they're sending missionaries to our countries. They're sending missionaries to Canada. They're sending missionaries to the U.S., to Latin America and Europe. And, it's been a very interesting flip. And so I think that there's definitely something going on, something going on with our culture.
Yeah. I know within our culture, North America, I'm talking about, let's look at some of the areas that we do get influenced. And one of the big ones that I think about, that multi-billion-dollar industry of movies. Yeah, that's a big influence. And of course, it can be positive because there's some great Christian movies coming out. But the negative influences, we get the negative in the horror movies. Pornography, obviously, that type of industry. But we allow the enemy to enter into us by watching things in movies that we don't need to be watching this. We give it time that we shouldn't.
Oh, 100%. And there's, I think a lot of the times, like, even when we're watching movies, we're like, oh, this is such good television, but, like, is this good television? Is this good for us? Because this is entertaining, but is this feeding our souls? And what are we letting influence us? I find sometimes when I'm watching a show, it can like, I try to live in that sometimes, and, like, I'm into, like, binge watching shows, and that's a big thing, and we pick one show and we watch it, and we try to watch a lot of it. And they say that you look for what you're missing in these shows. Like, are you missing Friends? People watch Friends. Are you unsatisfied with your job? Are you watching The Office and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
And so how is that, what are we seeking there, and how is that influencing us?
And the other one is music. Yeah, that's a big influence because it's the words of the music, and then they put that sound. They pick that perfect sound to go behind it, sometimes with a really silly words, but the right music behind it, and then, that gets stuck in your head. But there's also, like, I grew up with the R&B music, and some of the words to some of those songs can be kind of risque, and then that mood music behind it. So, so we have to think about that, the music that we're listening to, but more so the music of it than it's the words. It's the words of the music. Yeah, that's definitely something that can gateway again. And then some of it some of it can be quite demonic. Yeah, when you get into that crazy kind of Ozzy Osbourne type of music. I don't even know what kind of music that is, but
But I think also just like, how does that affecting your mood, and what are you pouring into yourself? Sometimes I'm listening to like a lot of like, even like the Barbie movie and some of that soundtrack when like Margot Robbie is so sad, and like that Billie Eilish song, and some other like rap music can make me really angry. I can't listen to rap when I'm driving because, you know, I find myself getting angrier at cars. And I think that we don't like to think about it, but music has a huge influence on our mood.
and some of these musicians, I was reading an article about Taylor Swift, and in some of her shows, because I mean, young girls and even parents of young girls think that that might be a kind of good influence, Taylor Swift. Well, I don't know about that. She on stage, she's actually dressed up as a witch, and she's got a cauldron and you know, like doing what's the word? Spells,
Concoctions,
yeah,
maybe.
and spells during her shows. So it's not just the music they're putting out, but these artists, because a lot of people follow these artists, and you know, they want to be like these artists. You know, like the Instagram numbers for these people are crazy. But I mean, this person who's acting like a witch on stage, and then you get into other artists. I mean, I've heard the same thing about Beyonce and the witchcraft and these types of things. So yeah, you really gotta be concerned with, you know, the words they're putting out, and then the person themselves, especially if you have, you know, children yourself, or you have children that are following these people.
I think Taylor Swift's such an interesting one because she has such an influence on the nation and on people. And I grew up with Taylor Swift. That was so huge, and she's come back in such a big way. And I think even just the way that she dresses and what she models, and I mean, her music is great, but it's this, you know, I, woman, hear me roar. I'm gonna get a lot of money, and I'm gonna be, you know, a bad boss, and I'm gonna do whatever I want whenever I want, and it's very interesting, and it's and there's a lot of groupthink within Swifties, which can be scary, where it's almost like its own following. It's almost like its own cult at times.
Yeah, got to be careful. Got to pay attention, keep your eyes open, not just for yourselves, but certainly for young people, the young people around you.
And I think there's a way to still enjoy this music. You know, if the music isn't in bad, and if you're really listening to the lyrics, I'm a big country fan, and so what I do is I try to find, you know, better songs, songs that aren't you know, as provocative or degrading to women or any of these things, and I try to find music that's just better than what's out there, and I try to listen to those songs.
And another area of influence, especially in the last 20 years, 15 years, is social media.
Oof.
Yeah. I'm kind of dragging my feet. I know I have to kind of get into it a little bit for the podcast, but social media is big. It's big.
The metaverse is crazy. Facebook, Instagram, X, which was formerly Twitter, Reddit, like all of these things, they're so huge, and I think it is probably the biggest influence on our culture. And I mean, especially my generation, people my age, it's interesting just talking about screen time on our phones. And like, if you had to take a guess, what would you say would be a preposterous number for someone to say they spend on their phone?
Are we talking in a day or a week?
In a day.
In a day, preposterous. If they said they spend, I mean, you're only awake for so many hours. So if they said they spent 16 hours?
Okay. So not I know people that spend 16. Sometimes I see people.
I mean, if it's a non-work day.
I know people that sometimes I look at their screen time average, and I've had friends that show me like 20 hours a day, and I'm like, how is that possible? but a lot of people spend at least 8 hours a day on their phones.
It's a work day.
Yeah. And
they're putting in work.
Put in work, and even if you're putting in, and I'm guilty of this, and I that's something I've been trying to cut down on a lot. But even if you're putting in an hour a day, right? You're spending 20 minutes on Instagram, 20 minutes on Snapchat, 20 minutes on Facebook. That adds up to be one work day a week.
Mm-hmm.
And
I know I'm guilty of spending way too much time. Yeah. I mean, it's not social media, but I go on there and I listen to other church services because I know my friend's church service or my mom's church service. So I listen to those, and I listen to other pastors online. So it's my entertainment and my feeding, and then I have podcasts that I listen to. So, and then I'm learning about podcasting. So I could easily spend 3-4 hours doing that.
100%.
Easily.
And it's, I think TikTok especially. TikTok started as something, it was like, there was Vine, which was these like very short, funny videos. And then TikTok was kind of a replacement when that died. And I downloaded TikTok, and a lot of people downloaded TikTok and immediately deleted it because they were like, whoa, that was addictive. I was spending, 3-4 hours a day straight on it, and I couldn't get off of it. And it was so addictive. And I was scrolling, and I was like, oh, I don't want to be on here anymore. And I was like, oh, I can't stop. Next video, one more video. And then it's 3 hours later. And, but now Instagram has TikToks on them. They have Reels, and Facebook has Reels on them as well. And so it's unavoidable, and it's so addictive. Like it's not even funny how addictive it is. And I know people that can't go to the bathroom without watching TikTok, that can't make a meal without scrolling on TikTok, and it's always on.
That's an addiction. I would think that would influence you. Anything 100%. That you spend that much time on.
And that's not like that's not a fringe thing. Like I'd say out of people my age, if I had to guesstimate, out of every 10 people, at least 6 to 8 are like that.
Wow.
It's heavily in our culture, at least an hour a day.
What happens if they just shut us down? That technology is gone.
Oh, I would be sad personally, which is not great. I think it's such an endorphin rush, and it's how, like, those little like TikTok sounds and like random little sayings are how a lot of people communicate. And I'll quote funny things, and it has so much influence because there are literally influencers on there who are trying to convince you to buy things and live their lifestyle, and someone's always trying to influence you and show you how to live the better life. Meanwhile, you're sitting on your phone. And
that's through TikTok?
This is through TikTok, and Instagram and Facebook. And it's just people telling you how to live a better life. Be a trad wife. No, don't be a trad wife. Be the opposite. Be a femininomenon, which is a whole nother thing. But it's do this. And it's almost this, you can never do anything right. And everyone's always trying to tell you. And it's information overload. And it's influencing us in 1,000 different ways.
So there we go. This is Christian women, and both of us spend probably too much time on the social media type things. Another thing I was thinking of was even exercise, because I know I'm a Canadian Forces veteran, and a part of our exercise program was yoga. And they would say these words as you're holding these positions that I paid no attention to because I didn't know what they were talking about over my head. But these words that they were using, these names of these positions, are actually religions or part of a religion.
Names of gods, yeah.
And which I didn't know until later, my naivete, but I didn't know that till later. And I thought, okay, that could be a pretty bad image. And there's the yoga studios that are more into the religion of it, not just the exercise, but the religion of it. So that's something that is a negative influence that we got to worry about. Yeah.
And I think also just beyond yoga, just the workout culture and the hustle and the grind culture. And there's I I was telling you I got sucked up in this, where I was scrolling social media and I kept seeing this thing called like 4am girlies, where there are these women that had their lives together, and I kept seeing, you know, they're going on these great trips and they're happy and they're thin and they have just amazing lives, and they say they do it by getting up at 4 a.m. and, you know, going to the gym. And so I bought a very expensive gym membership, and I started waking up at 4 a.m. and going to the gym, and I bought all the fancy gym clothes, and I did all these things, and it was so expensive, because like I went to Gymshark, and it was like, I think it was like $80 for a pair of shorts. Stupidest mistake. But I was looking for something that I can only find in Jesus.
Yes. Yeah.
I was trying to work out and do this thing that was going to fix my life. And newsflash, getting up at 4 a.m. and working out for 2 hours before your day will not fix anything. It really won't.
Mm-hmm. And you said the words, I was looking for something.
Oh, 100%.
And you know that now, or at least certainly looking back. But a lot of people don't know that when they're spending oodles amounts of time or attention to something, because they're looking for Jesus. Mm. They don't even know what they're looking for, but they're looking for something. You're looking for Jesus. And, you know, in exercise or in movies or music or whatever. And of course, then you get into the different ideologies, and like it's all can be negative influences. All can be negative influences.
I completely agree. I think all of these things are just things that we're trying to fill these Jesus-shaped holes in our hearts with, you know, we're going to these movies that make us feel better about our lives and make us laugh, and we're going to, you know, we're trying to exercise, and we're trying to find the answers on TikTok, or trying to dissociate and find something that makes us laugh, and we're going to all of these things, and we're letting these things influence us because we're trying to find the answer. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the only answer is Jesus.
Yeah. Jesus said in John 17:16, they are not of this world, even as I am not of this world. Okay. So we're supposed to be in the world, but not of it. So we have to be concerned, pay attention to what we allow to influence us. And not all influence has to be a bad thing. You know, we can be influenced in a good way. And when I think about music, I was thinking about Proverbs 18:21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. It's the words to some of the music that's out there is what we need to be concerned with. Yeah.
I agree. I think it's, what are we feeding ourselves? And I think, yeah, it's just slowing down and making a conscious choice of, I'm going to pick songs that are better, that are going to feed me better. I'm going to pick movies that are going to feed me better.
Because they can be a positive influence. Like I mentioned, the great Christian movies that are coming out now. And I mean, not all movies are bad. It doesn't even have to be a Christian movie. Like there's some good movies out there, you know? So we don't always have to go to that really negative place of the horror movie, or, you know, I find even those romance movies are garbage. But I mean, there's good movies out there that aren't the faith-based, but, you know, we need to be looking for them, right? We need to be looking for them. And music, well, the worship music, you know, the hymns that have the word of God in them, like those beautiful hymns, and even the contemporary Christian music. I mean, there's some of that when you listen to the words of it, it doesn't even sound like it's a Christian song, so you have to be careful. But there's some beautiful contemporary Christian music out there. So all of these things that we're talking about, there is the good in it. We just need to be looking for it. Like social media, podcasting, like there's certainly the good. Like I listen to some fantastic podcasts online. You just have to be, you have to search for it. Sometimes you have to weed through the garbage to get to the good stuff.
Oh, 100%. And then there's better versions of everything, and it can still be very tailored to you, and it doesn't mean that you have to, you know, do something that, you know, like even music, you don't have to listen to something that you think, oh, only my grandma would listen to that, something that you don't connect with. For like, there's so many. We're at such a great age of music, Christian music especially. There's like I really like indie music, and so artists like Jimmy Clifton and stuff, of just more like country music, country style music or indie style music that worships the Lord and talks about God's name and glorifies God. And there's movies, there's so much good that you can find out there, and in podcasts. I mean, I'm guilty of really loving, like true crime, and that's not the best it's not the best for you. So I've been shifting to some more podcasts that bring more light and make me a little less cynical. But there's always better options out there, and there's always things that are.
Just like a short side note there, without taking us off on a tangent. You mentioned those, but I used to love or be addicted to those crime, Dateline, all Dateline, 48 Hours, all those types of things. Forensic Files. Oh, I could binge watch Forensic Files. And I actually found a Christian podcaster, and that's what he does for a living. He's a forensics person. And he's been on Dateline and places like that. And I thought, wouldn't that be a nice person to sit down and have a conversation with? Because obviously there's a place for that. Like, we have Christians that work in the police forces, that work in forensics, but we have begin to use that as entertainment. That's the thing. It's a good thing, but when you start using it as entertainment, like even me, if I could just watch an episode, but to sit down and watch an episode every single day, like then I took it that way.
You can still do these things, but yeah. I found what I do is I'm a double major. I study the Bible, but I also study psychology, and I love the psychology of it, and so I just found a podcast that focuses on the psychology and doesn't glorify it, and then I don't listen to it every day. It's just things in moderation. We can. There's always better.
Yes. Yeah.
Better choices, better steps.
Yeah. We've just started a study in the book of Daniel, and I was thinking about it with influence in mind, that God allowed the Babylonians to come and invade, took Daniel and his friends, or took the Jewish people back to Babylon. But Daniel and his friends, they allowed that culture to influence them. They still kept their faith in God, but they learned about the culture. And they actually were elevated because of the knowledge that God gave them and the knowledge that they had of the culture. The king elevated them to higher positions. And Daniel took his faith and the gifting that he had to help the king out with being able to tell him what was going on in his dreams and, the dreams that he was having. So Daniel actually influenced culture. So we should think about it that way. We need to learn about our culture, because we have Christians that have added to our culture scientifically, technologically. So it's thinking, okay, yeah, Daniel did that. Daniel and his friends did that. We can do that. We can, us in smaller ways. I'm not going to do it scientifically, but we can influence the culture. But first we have to learn about the culture and then try to influence it. Like sometimes we have to intentionally try to influence it in our small space, in our workplace, in our schools or whatever, but try to influence the culture so that, like the king, eventually he came to Christ. God had to bring him low, but he came to faith. But I think, we need to maybe look at it this way, not always letting it influence us, but try to influence the culture. And then those people will hopefully see Jesus in us, or start questioning us. You mentioned earlier about them questioning you at work about your faith, but maybe they'll start questioning us and come to faith, like King Nebuchadnezzar, like, your co-workers coming to you and talking to you. So, not just being influenced, which we are, but we need to start influencing culture as Christians.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's so important that we still know about culture. I don't think that we can just, it's not as black and white. We can't say we're gonna shut off from the world. We're gonna turn off our phones. We're gonna go out in the woods and we're not gonna know anything. But I think being mindful about these sources, but still engaging in culture, and I think we can have such an influence. I've always worked in secular workspaces. I've done a few internships and a few work periods in churches. The predominant amount of work that I've done in the last 5 or 6 years has been in coffee shops and in restaurants and in retail, and it's been very interesting. And I think culture is very, very hurt and very hesitant of Christianity. I've definitely gotten in trouble a lot of times for speaking about Christ at work, because there definitely are a lot of rules and policies in a lot of workplaces about never talk about religion, never talk about Jesus, and I've been the best about following that. But I think there's a way to influence people in the way of just letting people know, oh, I'm a Christian and this is something that's very important to me, and they're showing with your actions and influencing with your love and your care. And I think we can have a big role in that.
Yeah, this is better. We can make it better as Christians. We are influenced, but we can also influence others. What do you think? Are you being influenced, or are you influencing others in the way of Christ? Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe and tell your friends, and we'll see you next week.